Good, you're laughing already. That's the perfect place to start with the medicine of Integration Monday from Confluence 2026. Of course, it was one of my most cherished memories meeting you, Lauren, over a popsicle last year. And this year we pretty much picked up right where we left off with our friends, with our chosen family, with our tribe, not to the exclusion of the rest of the world, just those of us who were committed to being at Confluence this year. And there were so many first timers this year, which was really quite a treat to see how many people were saying yes for the first time. And yeah, we were sophomores for this edition. And so, of all the places to start, Lauren, I would love to hear how first this felt the same for you. Like what did you enjoy about this year's Confluence that was familiar, that you were, I'm just as you were pulling up to the ranch, getting your stuff together, walking to your tent, what were you mostly stoked about that, I get to do this again? And the again piece, just to say finally, really crystallized for me the delusion and illusion of linear time, because I think if people really give that some heartfelt thought, they realize that there is no linear element to time, at least as we experience it, because it's Confluence again. It's Thanksgiving again. It's my birthday again.
Mm.
It's summer again. This repeat, this circle, this spiral of time. It's not a trap. It's not oh my. It's not like a Groundhog Day type thing. It's, oh my gosh, we get a chance to experience a different, still a new season, but we get to do it afresh. And yes, we grow, and yes, we change, and there's aspects of us that die and evolve, but it's Confluence again, and we get to reap all that's been sown from the year prior. So, by way of welcome, what were you so looking forward to in your sophomore season this year?
I love
Good to see you.
hearing that sophomore season. Yes. Well, I'm happy to be here with you, Tom, and to carry on this energy of what Confluence was. I mean, it was an energy. And it was a different kind of energy than it was last year when we met. But I was really most looking forward to seeing my friends and my family that I had established relationships with already. I mean, you and I, we kept up throughout the year here and there. And it almost was this kind of like, ooh, like it's not, everything's not all new. Like I have friends that I'm looking forward to catching up with. And I was on the shuttle bus. And you know what? I don't care if maybe I'm a confluencer of like 10 years. Let me just say something. I think the shuttle ride from the airport to the ranch is an underrated opportunity. Because here you are, like you're dressed in a way that people just know you're going to Confluence. I had this woman that I noticed at the airport. She kept looking over at us, and she was kind of dressed in a way with a hat. She looked like she was going to go spend a week on a ranch, right? She looked alternative. Finally, she came up to our group because one of the women there was wearing some shirt that said something about raw milk, right? And she's like, "Are y'all going to Confluence?" And we're like, "Yes." And it was her first time. So we all pile on the shuttle bus, and I think I was the only one that had been there the year before. So I'm like, I'm going into mom mode, Tom, and I'm like, all right, y'all, here's what we're going to expect. Here's the layout of the land. There's the brewery. Our tents are that way. Make sure you get a popsicle. Meet a guy named Tom. I'm just trying to like go into like, hey, y'all, like it's not as scary as you think it might be your first time, because there's some of those nerves of first comers, right? They're like, oh no, are we going to know anyone? Are we going to make friends? But the shuttle bus. Last year, I met Brian Costello and Sandy and several others that I've also kept up with, like gems of human beings. And this year had the same privilege of connecting with other people that I'm going to continue to be in relationship with. It's just a really intimate hour and 15-minute ride that I can't think of better friendships formed out of the whole Confluence than that shuttle ride there. I wish I got a shuttle ride back to the airport, but again, I left at somewhat of an ungodly hour in the wee morning. So, but did you ever catch a shuttle, or did you just get an Uber to the ranch?
No, we've been rental car people This time,
Okay.
my return ride was with a couple of friends, a couple
Okay.
of different generations, which was cool. And so we had that time with, and our driver was someone who was familiar with the event on his periphery, but didn't know all the ins and outs. So a little bit of a recap, and then just what was alive and interesting for us. And so that was really special. But I didn't know that you met Sandy and Brian and some of your mates there
Yes.
on the shuttle bus last year. That's super
Yeah, we're
special.
all just like, jittery with energy, excited to meet people. And then like those were our like safe people throughout the week too. So I was stoked to be what little of a guide I could be, Tom, for people that were new, because I appreciated that for me last year when people kind of helped me know where to go. But I mean, I was looking forward to sleeping in a tent again, like being closer
Yeah.
to the earth, like being grounded a majority of the week. I was looking forward to being in the sun as much as possible. I was looking forward to clean and pure water. I mean, I don't know about you, Tom, but I mean, I only really ate like one meal a day because I was getting so much nourishment from all the other resources, the water, the sun, the great conversation. I didn't even think about that one form of nourishment that we only think about when we're not at Confluence. Food, food, food. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. But the nourishment came from the knowledge too, from so many other places. Did you find that true for yourself too?
Very much so. None more so than the day of my workshop that I didn't even have my treat, which was a chai latte every other day with raw milk and made with great chai leaves, and was really a phenomenal treat every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then being up until what for the rest of us is ungodly. I love to reflect on the nourishment that we get, the abundance of energy, because I am fairly certain that the overwhelming majority of that crowd is usually asleep as close to sunset as possible wherever they come from in the world. And the
Mm-hmm.
fact that we no one really second guessed the opportunity to be up until 12, 1 a.m.,
Mm-hmm.
2 a.m., 3 a.m., you know,
Mm-hmm.
enjoying each other's company, reveling in all of as you mentioned, that is nourishment. You're able to stay up and not think about, oh my gosh, what time is it? And I should be putting on
Mm-hmm.
my blue blocking glasses, or I should stop eating for the day, or I should eat something. That for me, because I remember last year eating several meals a day and kind of overdoing it, and this
Yeah, me
year
too.
especially, yeah, and part of it is just the quality of the food for sure, and breaking bread with other people. Those are all attractive aspects of sharing that space together. Yeah, this year was much different, and thank you for bringing up that profound experience of being nourished by the elements. That, even though it was like waking up in a steam room most mornings because it was so humid and gray, and I I love that. I mean, again, because I've been more aware, especially in New England winters, the toll and the, I was going to say, lack of resilience that comes from always seeking shelter and temperature manipulation. So that being able to just thrive and have a low level sweat, have a low key
Mm-hmm.
sweat all day long in humid temperatures, and then dry and then hot, and go from shade to sun and a little bit of rain here and there, and go for a swim and have and then be inside a little bit. But that, as I've told people here at home, was, and then of course to sleep out in the elements with a little bit of protection with the tents. I didn't know that that could feel so natural, because
Mm-hmm.
I've never had that experience of having a week where you rise and you're really not inside until you go back in your tent for the day. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we went inside to the restaurant, or we were under the canopy of the main stage seating or anything like that, and still we're
Mm-hmm.
in fresh air, sunlight going beyond just what we can visibly see. It's as long as we're
Yeah.
not closed off from it by four walls. That nourishment. So that takeaway for me was, as I said, profound, because having
Mm-hmm.
not had that experience other than last year, where I think I spent a bit more time inside just from more workshops and all of that. Uh, I love sharing that with people now when they ask me about my experience. That being out in the elements, letting my body effortlessly, seamlessly adjust to whatever, because that's part of our terrain. As I mentioned to several people there, now I bring into the discussion of terrain, uh, just in standing, if I'm standing next to Lauren at Confluence, my terrain, my inner brilliance of my body is acutely aware of what time of day it is, how much sleep I got, how much I've been walking today, what the temperature is, what the humidity is, my proximity to the sun, my proximity to you and your energy field, how much water I've had today. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
each and every one of those things is worth a deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
and then we get an abundance of wisdom from that. I just I remember a time when I was maybe not fearful of the sun. Before I kick it back to you, I'll tell you that one of my great bits of feedback as a child that I've only recognized in hindsight, and so it goes, is that when forced to eat broccoli and when forced to apply sunscreen, I would gag. Like my mom would be putting sunscreen on me, and I would be going. Ugh. So if talk
Yeah.
about the wisdom of the youth. If I ever needed
Yeah.
any feedback that those things were toxic to my system, that's it. So, how
Mm-hmm.
do you feel like your body felt given? I mean, I know you're committed to, rewilding yourself as often as
Mm-hmm.
possible, but how did you adapt and adjust to that kind of climate? Because it was abrupt for us coming from New England,
Yeah.
where it had been 50 and gray. So there was the adjustment curve, but after 24 hours, it was seamless.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about people coming from other climates and regions. For me, it was lockstep. I'm in a hot, humid climate anyway in South Carolina, so totally used to it. And I very much love humidity. I'm kind of like a lizard in that way. I think it's really good to be sweating, and so I embrace it. So it wasn't an issue at all for me. And one of the things that I was looking forward to most, Tom, about Confluence was the way my body would feel post event. I had a pretty profound experience last year where I feel like I went through, I'm making this number up, but I feel like I went through 5 years of healing physically in my bodily shell in that 1 week last year. And I remember
Really?
coming home, yeah, and feeling like, do I have any joint issues? Did I miraculously heal my pelvic and my low back? Did I like, because I've had so many physical injuries in my body, and so I was really looking forward to coming back this year and just feeling the contrast because I love contrast. I want to know how I feel this way and then compare it to that way. I just find contrast really it's a teacher for me. And so I wanted to get on the earth as much as possible. I also brought my own grounding mat that I don't use inside my home because from an EMR perspective, like you don't really want to be using grounding mats inside because it can couple on to the electric fields going on in your house wiring and it can do the opposite effect. However, I'm outside. There's no house wiring, so that's always a good idea to use a grounding mat. So I brought my stake and I plugged it into the earth and I got it through TSA. Yay. And I felt really good. Like I felt a sensitivity that listeners of this debrief understand. It's like our senses of our bodily functions become heightened because we are drinking pure water. We're breathing clean air. We're having vital conversations with like-minded people. We can be our authentic selves. It's like every sense of our being becomes almost sensitized in a way that like I could hear my intuition in a really intense way that I don't normally or hear as much when I'm in loud environments, noisy environments, energetically, not just physically loud. So I could hear my higher self. I could hear my guides. I could hear God prompting me just instantaneously about something or someone or to have this conversation. And it's like you just get in this flow and this rhythm. And it's like you kind of you know what I'm talking about. You slip into another realm. Like when you're surrounded by that many people of like-minded coherence and consciousness, and it's subtle. Like when you slip into it because you would be even having a conversation with somebody and you guys would just be like in a flow and the main speaker could already start, and you aren't even aware of the main speaker starting because you're enjoying this conversation about sovereignty, or you're enjoying this conversation about freedom. It's like almost like nothing else matters besides this exact moment right here, even though you came here to hear that main speaker. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like none of it matters when you're in the now and here. And it's almost like, well, is that what is healing to us? Like even outside the physical elements of the water and the air, like is the moment that's healing us is now here in this.
Hmm. I thought it was brilliant and poignant that you brought up contrast as teacher, because one of the seminal moments for me was when Alec, the for people listening, we've spoken about Alec before, the premier organizer and pioneer and leader, albeit sometimes reluctant leader, and I mean that lovingly, just as someone who had a vision for his life at one time that probably did not look like this and is doing it
Mm-hmm.
anyway. And that's usually how most authentic change is created, by people who lean in, even though they're not seeking that level of influence and impact. And when he gave his wide ranging talk, when he asked for quiet and stillness towards the end of his talk, I don't know if I've ever been around that calm before, especially with several hundred people in attendance for that one. And I felt
Mm-hmm.
that supreme stillness, that's as much of a contrasting experience in my life as I can remember, because I
Mm-hmm.
am so used to, and I don't necessarily consider myself hypersensitive to other people's energy. I'm generally aware of it because that's one of the gifts God gave me and bestowed upon me, was being able to tune into, have a decent read for people. And I've had to
Mm-hmm.
sharpen that over the years. It can't just be my sword slashing through the
Yeah.
fields. There has to be a little bit of recognition, an intimate bit of recognition. And so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm used to a good bit of dissonance. I'm used to frenetic energy. I'm used to people who, I don't find it as easy to seamlessly connect with now in the present, because whether it's eyes darting all over the place, or a body that's looking to go somewhere else, or a mind that is anywhere but in that
Mm-hmm.
present moment. So that was magnificent to share that
Mm-hmm.
moment. And when we reflect on what it is that moves us toward that space of peace and trust, which I know
Mm-hmm.
was a theme for many of our speakers and many of our experiences last week, then that would seem to me the core ingredient in our nourishment. It's immensely, I mean, it makes my heart smile, Lauren, to think of you and you being able to drink from that deep well of vitality and healing, both last year and this year. And
Mm-hmm.
because I think so much of the pain story that we experience, and story by I mean moment to moment, when we feel the very real experience of pain, that my experience with pain, especially with injury, has been the anticipation that the next now moment is going to be like this one, and I'm able to transcend that when I access a bit more of flow and I move freely, and I'm not thinking about whatever diagnosis or
Yes.
self-diagnosis I just get, to this being a spinal injury, or this being an
Yes.
ankle tendonitis, etc. Because I've definitely had those moments when I have been visited by the pain teacher, and then I accept some sort of invitation to be in more flow, that I forget to tell
Yeah.
myself that story, that this is supposed to be painful. And uh yeah, the contrast as teacher. So what other contrast did you feel? I mean, this is certainly a singular event
Mm-hmm.
compared to how we all normally operate. And I remember last year the feeling, only to jump ahead a little bit, of as our time was winding down because we left Sunday morning last year before a closing ceremony. There was no
Right.
integration day. There was no opportunity to
You mean
have that exhale
disintegration day?
together. Well, it's very much so for those of us
We'll get there.
who
We'll
chose.
get there.
Well, oh, for sure, for sure. I'll see if I can bring up that those pictures you shared too,
Okay.
because those are super special. Did you see that those pictures were featured on all the
Yes.
Confluence content I put out?
Yes. And I met the
I mean,
photographer, and she's
ooh,
amazing. She
really,
captured
yeah.
some
Shout out,
really
really.
playful moments. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
playful. Well, so that being so much more the spirit of this year,
Hmm.
but last year I felt as the great and powerful Eileen McCusick had referenced last year, the inward spiraling that we feel so expansive that we could just unwind up and out, spiral up and out
Hmm.
forever when we're in a setting like that, and that
Hmm.
it's only natural because of our human experience that spiral eventually come back down and in. And I
Hmm.
was feeling a little bit of that already towards the end of last year before we even departed. And this year didn't really have a taste of that. I mean, there was an awareness for sure,
Hmm.
but it's because last year I was so aware of, oh my gosh, this is so different. Nothing in my life at home even remotely compares to this.
Hmm.
True. And no but, and to wish or to want to the my relationship to the word want has transformed
Hmm.
in a major way. I no longer, especially for myself, but also when I coach, and I don't say I want you to do it this way. I say I challenge you to do things this way, because want just emphasizes the lack. And for me to say I want or I wish, it's just so hollow to focus on that aspect and say I want every day to be like this.
Hmm.
It's the great cliche. If every day were sunny, we wouldn't appreciate the rain, and vice versa. So what did the contrasting experience of your day-to-day orbit in South Carolina versus this, several days of Confluence a year? I mean, it really is enough to fill one's battery until
Hmm.
it's Confluence again. But what other sort of comparing and contrasting did you do that revealed just how meaningful investing in this event for yourself is for you?
Yeah. Well, I was comparing it to last year. And
Oh yeah.
it was an elated experience we shared last year. It was an ethereal experience. We quite literally were in the clouds. And everyone that experienced Confluence last year would say that. Like it was a
Yeah.
cloud-like experience where we connected with the heavens and left our bodies, or it was just such not even an emotional, but it was a really light but deep experience last year. And so I came into this Confluence kind of thinking that would happen again with different flavor, different seasoning, different food choices, but I kind of thought that would happen again. But this year wasn't that. It was a completely different meal entirely. It was a grounding experience, and it started off with the elements, with the staff and the folks putting together
Yeah.
this week. It started off literally with the elements of a lot of rain, a lot of mud, a lot of earth, creating
Oh, that
obstacles.
Texas mud is like nothing else.
Yeah.
There's there's
Yeah.
there's there's no grip on reality to be well, I mean, there's a grip on reality when you slip through it, but truly talk about surrender and powerlessness. If I can only imagine what it was like before we got there.
Totally. And so you could sense that walking onto the ranch, like you knew there was some stories to be had about setup and them processing through some stuff. And like in a vein of like if I was, I've put together many conferences for people before in my prior work with
Hmm.
the nonprofit realm. And I understand that energy when you start a retreat or you start a conference and you're feeling a sort of way. You think, oh no, it started off
Yeah.
funky. Maybe the whole week will be funky. And here's actually where I would say that maybe start off feeling funky feeling was actually an amazing thing because it invited all of us to enter into this really grounded place of being adaptive, of being flexible, of being resilient, of reminding ourselves that it's not actually about having a cushy experience and making sure we hear that person and we do that thing. It's like, actually, I'm being I'm being invited to be in this present moment, to show who I really am when discomfort comes up. And I was talking to Rochelle Anderson about this, who's been to four
Yeah.
confluences. And she had mentioned that she felt like this year was a crying confluence. And I agree. This was an emotional confluence. I was also crying every day in different ways, shapes, and forms. But this was such a grounded experience. I feel like we went down from the clouds, like shoo, into our bodies, like into the actual work that we need to do if we're still integrating last year. And I feel like, I don't know about you, Tom, I feel like I'm still integrating last year. Like I'm still peeling back layers from last year. And I might be the rest of my flippin' life because it was such a unique and special experience. And also, at the same time, this year was such a unique and special experience in a different way. And Rochelle talked about it almost being like personalities, like each confluence has a personality. Like she would look at her four children, like she doesn't love one or the other in a different way. She loves them all equally, but they all have different personalities. And so I would imagine that Confluence next year is going to have a certain personality that is the exact personality that the collective is meant to interact with and learn from and grow from.
Yeah.
So, not good or
Thank you.
bad, not right or wrong, but just exactly what it was supposed to be.
Thank you for reflecting on that, especially from the jump of landing there, knowing the toil that went into getting those grounds ready, and pure grace and serendipity that things cleared up and dried up. I mean, within hours of people arriving, because otherwise it sounded like almost a hellscape with that Texas mud and the torrential rain. And so,
The bridge is
yeah,
washing
that
out. Yeah.
yeah. And so that invitation, because that you spoke to what I imagine everyone would feel the same, the supremely grounding experience of being there compared to last year. Yeah, it was. Um, I just remember being so charged up last year. I mean, I remember
Yeah.
bursting at the seams to share with people and be able to go right to the depths with people because we have
Yeah.
similar, we have shared values. We have
Yeah.
a tribal lexicon of catchphrases and mantras and perspectives, paradigms, all of that. And so those are all portals with which we can walk through and then go right to the depths of our experience. And this year, because it was so much more, because the connection, and I'm no expert by any means in terms of the world of electrical engineering, but that the grounding was already established. So it's not like we
Mm.
had to then somehow corral the electric charge that was coursing through all of us. No, we already had that connection established. So then from there, you just plug in. Then you're
Bingo.
just you're very much just there with
Mm-hmm.
people, and there's not a lot of. I think I mentioned this in my workshop that for many of us to consider ourselves seekers, that for me for a time, Lauren, if it was seeking the truth on. I remember the last because we don't have a better word for it, conspiracy theory. The last public event, false flag, that I was really looking into was the Boston Marathon bombing, which I have people connected to that, and it very much follows the track of just like when we talk about how viruses do not exist. If I were to say something like the Boston Marathon bombing appears to be something of a false flag, people's conditioned reflex is, so you're saying people didn't die or get hurt? No, I know people who were injured, who were
Mm-hmm.
there, who saw chaos and carnage. And this is where we're tasked with trying to see beyond just whatever those final presentations are, because the machinations behind the scenes are something else entirely. It's so
Mm-hmm.
I liken that, or I compare that to when we say something like viruses is never proven to exist, and people say, "Are you saying I didn't get sick?" No, I mean people's lived experience are very legitimate, and your lack of ease, your dis-ease, is valid. We're just talking about first principles and causes, and so
Mm-hmm.
I bring that up to say in terms of the lack of grounding and the disconnection that comes from being a seeker. That I remember the heaviness, the darkness that came with that. And it wasn't necessarily like, oh my gosh, how could they do this? Why would they lie? Why would they bring violence to people and death and destruction to implement whatever? I was just feeling the heaviness of that
Mm-hmm.
knowledge, that seeking, and having found something. And when I emerged on the other side of that, the I was able to reflect on the perpetual state of seeking that I had been in for some time. And this aligned with my love of philosophy. And I really started my love of philosophy with the Stoics. And Stoic
Mm-hmm.
philosophy, I think, especially as an athlete, can be highly useful.
Yeah.
Is any philosophy the one and only? Almost definitely not. And but I just remember how that led me to constant more philosophy and more and more and more. And the self direction of just being a seeker means that we may not ever find peace. We may not ever
Yeah.
find those places where we feel like, okay, I feel good about what it is that I think I know. And it doesn't mean that my learning stops here. It doesn't mean that my journey stops here. But
Yeah.
as I've said many a time on this podcast, the place where I've landed in terms of my relationship to my body navigating this world is the most beautiful vision that I can imagine possible is that my body is brilliant and it's never made a mistake. That
Yeah.
is empowering and inspiring, and it helps me take an active role in my health from a place of trust. And then what will I learn as well? So I remember last year really showing up as a seeker and
Mm-hmm.
still seeking connection and still seeking all these opportunities to accrue and gain more knowledge with the workshops. And that was one of the starkest differences between last year and this year
Mm-hmm.
is the exhale, the I'm home feeling, the there's really no doing, there's only being
Mm-hmm.
while I'm here. And
Yes.
I had plenty of, as you say, I had plenty of meals that I enjoyed there last year of just being, but there was a little bit more doing last year. And
Mm-hmm.
and it's funny because I actually had some doing. My outlet in giving a workshop was when I felt like I really got to empty my cup, and it just made me realize that I'm so grateful to have that singular opportunity, and that I will mo- most abundantly and most absolutely be pursuing more opportunities to speak to an audience and to speak to
Mm-hmm.
people, because otherwise, uh, I put a lot of pressure on myself to do that at every interval that I get every one connection with someone if I don't have that outlet, that free flow exchange of energy. Because then, uh, thanks to one of the themes of this Confluence, I became a much better listener. Thanks to my friend and teacher Edmund Knighton, if I and much more humble, if I do say so myself. So,
Well, now that we're talking about humility, let me just publicly tell the world how great your workshop was. It really was awesome, Tom. You
I will.
really just owned the room and owned your topic. And uh, it was you and David and I, we were joking during some meal about how we could just add Steiner to any
Yeah,
topic at Confluence, like, and a whole you would pack out a room. I mean, the movement and Steiner, grilled cheese and Steiner, like pigs in a blanket and Steiner, like how to tell your story and Steiner, like. But I will just say, like, the room was packed out, Tom, and it was phenomenal. You did such a great job, and I think people really took away a lot and learned how to apply these Steiner movement principles to their everyday life. So, you still jazzing from that? You still vibing for how great it was, Tom?
massively,
Yeah,
massively,
good.
and particularly the experience of looking around the room and knowing that I was loved and supported and
Yes.
encouraged by people
Yeah.
like you, Edmund, my wife, my friends, new friends there, people who were stoked, just from my brief description of a workshop that is entitled Mastery Through Movement. the embodiment practices inspired by Rudolf Steiner was the one edit that I was keen to make. But hey, next year I'm going to do Urine Therapy by Steiner, or
Honestly,
How to
yeah.
Be a Man by Steiner, or something
I'm
like that.
yeah, like I'm gonna do How to Build a House by Steiner, like how to like,
And I'm Steiner, and turns out I'm Tom Lomenzo Steiner.
How to
Uh,
Drink Coconut Water by Steiner. Like, I mean, there's so many options, and it really just gives, creative power over so many subjects to pull a room together that's into like minded things. So,
it does, it
yeah,
does. So I'm so glad I capitalized on that, which I
smart
felt
man.
like I would happen, and I had blessings from from my
Yeah,
friends who have walked where I've not before.
yeah.
I appreciate your invitation to give my inside baseball and all of that, because when Alec asked me a year ago to just said, would you be willing to do a workshop next
Mm-hmm.
year? I said, absolutely, from a place of pure enthusiasm and excitement, and
Hmm.
the keen desire to be a
Yeah.
co-creator in that space. And not that I had any issue with being an attendee and just being an enthusiastic participant.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a part of me that was already living a year away, knowing that I am a co-creator, especially with a community that I am so innately aligned with. And so it was effortless in that respect. And I still wasn't quite sure what I would give it on for all of One Breath and One Heartbeat, until I realized that these practices that had been a part of my life for about a year and a half last year, and now for 2.5 years at this point in time,
Mm-hmm.
that would be something that was very alive for me, that I had lived experience with, that I was ready, willing, and able to share with people, and that would be well received. And I feel great about all of that, Lauren. And after being able to deliver that, because especially with the feedback I received, this being, and I'll speak here to one of the core pillars that built the experience for me in terms of my inner life and my inner reflection, was that, to borrow a phrase from my friend and teacher Edmund, being more human. Because I've had the aversion in the recent years to living in 5D, and I'm a star seed and I'm going back to stars. And but maybe it's just because I'm an athlete, and I or I there's a big part of my life that is the athlete archetype, and I'm still building my tennis game, and I'm thrilled and excited that my best tennis is yet ahead of me and all that. So I'm thinking, why escape? And I'm also in the crucible of the challenges that come with being human. And to be more human, as I was inspired to share at the beginning of my talk, is still a deeply spiritual experience.
Gosh,
That the
yeah.
more human we are, we recognize our seamless connection to creator, to creation, to spirit, to source, and to our souls, which go beyond just this human form. And so with that, the fact that the opportunity to offer people these embodiment practices that deepen our relationship to ourselves as human beings,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore the myriad ways in which we can experience a spiritual life, was so alive for me that I was, all year long, and every time I practiced, I was, champing at the bit to bring that to people, because it is open source now,
Mm-hmm.
in a way. And of course I knew, yeah, I mean, part of effective delivery is, a little something about your audience. And in a room full of people, that I could tell when I landed there that it was going to be something that resonated with people, because everyone was feeling the groundedness. That
Yeah.
I just, the conversations I was having and overhearing, that people were not looking for escapes. People were not looking to ameliorate their feelings of victim mentality with more victim mentality. They were
Mm-hmm.
looking for even more embodiments that they could feel invigorated to be in this world, and accept and pursue the challenges that come with that. And so being able to provide people with, as I think I mentioned, this toolkit, or these utensils, even, with which that we can start to explore our inner landscape and cultivate specific feelings, as opposed to qigong or tai chi, which is general cultivation of energy, still supremely valuable. I mean, last year when I was at Confluence, I was in days 35 through 40 or something like that of my 100-day gong, and still one of the best experiences of my life. And this something different entirely,
Yeah.
because of the profundity of specific movements to specific feelings of thinking, willing, equanimity. Equanimity is the word that most people don't know, but to be equanimous, to have a practice of equanimity, is to recognize the spectrum of our emotions and hold those and find our way back to the middle, back in a way to balance, and becoming in that practice not so volatile and not so easily swayed by external events. And I punctuated that point by saying, because that was one of the greatest challenges for me when I learned these practices in my men's group taught by Jared and co-hosted by my friend Jared, was that I realized how easily swayed I could be. I'm generally someone who embraces positivity, but that can be a bypass to go right there. And then when you do sit in feelings, feeling so vulnerable to basically the whims of other people and their energy. And what is so empowering about a practice of equanimity is coming back to when I realize that the spectrum exists within me, and so does the response. I've talked about this as well. The idea of being triggered. I'm the only one who's going to pull the trigger, Lauren. I mean, I really cannot be triggered. And not that I'm a weapon, but that's that phrase that's used so often in the cultural lexicon. No one else is going to pull the trigger for me. It's me who does it in the end. And if I always, if it's a hairpin trigger, if my finger's always on it and someone jostles me a little bit and I pull it, I'm going to blame them. But equanimity is a sublime reminder that it's our inner life that really sets the terrain for that and our swings in the spectrum. And then from there, we get to the places of harmony and positivity and openness and integrating all of that together. I'll use this opportunity to say, and I'll close with this as well when we land the plane, that I was so inspired, and sharing that with my friends and my teachers who were there, that we are going to be offering a program that just focuses on these embodiment practices inspired by Rudolf Steiner.
Amazing.
Still in the be here and being human realm. And so that will be Jared Picard and Edmund Knighton. And I'll link to their resources here, because there is an appetite for it. There is a field of people seeking and feeling the pull toward this, not being pushed. They feel the pull toward a more embodied life. And that was one of Steiner's great lessons, is that we are tasked, we are invited to become more embodied. Anything we do to escape is that luciferic, that distracting element that tries to blind us by the light and say, I need to get out of here and join the fallen angels and consider myself to be above and beyond all of this sadness and sacrifice and toil and challenge and all of that. That ain't it for us, Lauren. And like I said, as an athlete, I am deeply inspired by the opportunity to be more embodied, and also to cultivate the type of inner life that is holistic, that touches as many parts of me as I can consciously be aware of. And I'm excited to continue to deepen my practice with or my devotion to these practices, because that's what it is. I think Brooke McPoyle encouraged me to use that word, that devotion is just like ritual. We don't really have rituals, and people might talk about daily habits or what's your morning routine, anything like that. I now have rituals and I have devotions, and that's brought me a lot of richness in my life.
Beautiful. I'm excited to see this offering out into the world to further this workshop. That's so cool. I'm proud of you, dude.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, as you saw, it's not a one and done type experience. Like any devotion, it just takes on new life over time, and it does help to have some understanding of the insights behind the origins of it. And so that's really where we see the great opportunity, is to yeah, add these practices and devotions to people's lives and know a lot more about what it is exactly that we're creating for ourselves and
Hmm.
what the inspiration is. So that was Saturday at 9 a.m., but that was only 70 minutes of what felt like a lifetime at Sovereignty
Yeah.
Ranch. So I'm happy to kick it back to you and share and invite you to share any and everything else that you consider to be a highlight in terms of the offerings there.
Hmm.
Because, I mean, my attendance pales in comparison to Confluence 2025 for a reason, because I only went where I really felt pulled.
Yeah.
You know, most of the time, wherever my feet were talking to someone was plenty rich for me.
Yeah.
But what about you? Where did you end up that you were really happy that you brought your open mind and heart and ears to for the offerings there this year?
One that I think of is Garen's talk, obviously. So many people were
Yeah,
impacted by Garen's talk. And
yeah. I
one of
have
my
a
biggest go ahead.
I have a massive star right next to the word
Yeah.
edge, thanks to Garen.
Yeah. And one of the like very brief tidbits that he mentioned about he challenged the audience to wake up for the next 30 days with their eyes closed and go about their routine without opening your eyes. So I knew right away I wanted to commit to that. So since I've returned home, I didn't do this while I was in my Confluence tent because that would have been chaotic. But I've been
Yeah,
spending the first 10 minutes of my day with my eyes closed and going about my normal routine. And what's really interesting about that is so obviously, I'm in the world of holistic homes and creating spaces that are healing for people. And one of the things that I've been teaching for a long time, one of the elements that I do for my clients is the use of curvilinear architecture, the use of curvilinear shapes and replacing rectangular, angular shapes for curves, right? So when I'm going about this routine with my eyes closed, Tom, I'm feeling my way around my hallway and I'm noticing the my own use of angular shapes and curvilinear shapes. And it's doing something in my brain that is so haptic and tactile in nature that I almost want to encourage all my clients and all the interior designers that I teach, like, close your eyes and just feel your way around your own environment and see what that does to your almost like your DNA. Because I was feeling my way through the hallway and I touched this picture frame. Obviously, this picture frame was a 90-degree angle. And I was like, wow, that was such a subtle pressure on my palm, but that just did something where I was like, wait a second. If that was a curvilinear shape, like, I wouldn't have reacted to that. I wouldn't have
yeah,
noticed that. And so it's such a simple exercise, and I would like to eventually work my way up to 30 minutes. I think Garen says he does an hour, which is wild to think about going about your morning routine from waking up to brushing your teeth to making your warm beverage in the morning to getting dressed with your eyeballs closed and to activate all those senses. Game on, challenge on, Garen. Let's go. I'm gonna do it. I've
yeah.
also been journaling with my non-dominant hand, and wow, Tom, like, he was right. I'm feeling like all of these visions of me as a kid are coming up, and even like when you look at the handwriting, it looks like chicken scratch. Like, it's not
Yeah.
even legible.
If you're lucky.
I mean, my dominant hand, it looks like chicken scratch. So,
There you go.
so my non-dominant, it's like, whoa. I just got download after download since I've been back from Confluence journaling with my non-dominant hand of what I felt like when I was learning how to write. And so I did a little challenge for myself. I asked my husband Ryan if he wanted to join me, and which is kind of going to connect to another talk that was impactful for me. But Edmund said to see, I'm trying to remember what I even wrote. He told me to slow down 1% every day. And so what I want to do is with my non-dominant hand, just write one line at a time and see kind of how the handwriting might differ, not even like improve, but see how it evolves. And I feel like this whole process, and then my husband, he's doing the same thing. his saying is, what gets measured gets mastered.
Mm. Whew.
Ooh,
Whew.
yeah.
Let him know, Ryan. Shoot.
Yeah, yeah. So I just find those practical exercises incredibly powerful, and that's again bringing us down from the clouds to the earth. Like that is not necessarily out the gate an ethereal practice, but it will lead there. It can overlap that. It can come up and out of that, but that's a very rooted practice to then connect to the etheric realms in a different way, to connect to your higher self, your younger self, parts of yourself that you don't even know existed. Have you implemented either of those exercises that Garen mentioned? The eyes
Well,
closed or the
before I
non-dominant
forget,
hand?
well, thank you for being brave enough to go where a few others have gone before, and the fact that it's revealing those parts of yourself that that you've been disconnected from, and many of us are forced to be disconnected from. Because I've mentioned this before. I think in my episode on school is no place for learning, the idea that we are one of the few cultures still that places a performance rubric on human. I was gonna say human rights, but I know that's a weird concept. There are no human rights. It's,
Yeah.
we're all granted every freedom we need just by being here. But the opportunities, the gifts, just the staples of our lives of singing and dancing and creating art, that those have
Mm-hmm.
become in our culture things that get graded, and therefore, because we have a performative based culture in a lot of ways, if I'm less than the best with my singing voice, with my dancing expression, with my chosen medium of art, then that's how so many kids get disconnected from that part of themselves. Of course, there's a huge machine disconnecting us from our
Mm-hmm.
creative capacities as well. But that one struck me too because, yeah, I mean, I have fond memories of drawing. I showed you my mandala for this year. I mean, I hadn't
Mm-hmm.
touched colored pencils in 2 decades at least, uh, because of those feelings. And so we remember those things. I've had those experiences as well of writing with my non-dominant hand before. Of, yeah, like I just feel, is someone watching me? What's someone gonna think if they can't
Yeah.
read this? Does this mean I'm stupid?
Yeah.
Why can't I do this? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do this? That stuff, and it's opened up a lot of sympathy that I have in general for people. I've become hyper aware of this, Lauren, when I teach tennis, because I do my best never to make something as technically complex as a serve look easy. Because we tennis pro, because we've done it hundreds or thousands
Sure.
or tens of thousands of times. It's easy to say, yeah, and it just looks like this.
Yeah.
And people don't have the lens with which to break that down. So, um, not that I need to make it look difficult, but to be able to visit the segments of it. And so I bring that up to say, like practices like that have opened up a new layer of sympathy, that we all have those parts of us that are so rigid in their learned criticism and judgment. Why can't
Mm-hmm.
I do this? And then parenthetically, right the first time. I challenge kids with that all the time. I said, when was the last time you did something right the very first time? I mean, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
some of you have the opportunity to do that. I also don't say, well, it's going to take you 10 years to get this right. You can get it in 10 hours if your
Mm-hmm.
focus is there, if your open focus is there. I'll sprinkle in as well that I had become aware of the portals that are open at the time that we each have in a given moon cycle to raise the Christ oil. Are you familiar with this concept?
Mm-hmm.
Raising the Christos oil?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but will you
And
explain it
so,
again for listeners?
yeah, I mean, just our capacity to connect via the moon in our sun sign is this hidden part of us. So, the moon was in a ostensibly different sign when we were born. Mine is in Virgo, the same as my love.
And
Born in the
me,
sign of Virgo.
and me,
And
Virgo
you, of
moon,
course.
Virgo
Yep,
moon,
many Virgos.
Virgo sun.
Oh my gosh, wow. That's sublime. But yeah, but Moon in Taurus for me, which it will be sooner than later, unlocks this latent side of us, this creative side of us, to the point where someone online, I forget his name at the moment, has revealed that for the first time in his life, not only was he able to write in cursive with his non-dominant hand, he can also write backwards, and it improved the
What?
quality of his own handwriting. So these it's wild. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
these latent abilities that they have. Of course, it takes some practice,
Sure.
but there are times of the month and of the year where these subtle aspects of us are more available. So
Yeah.
I say challenge accepted as well. I mean, I've started to teach myself how to play tennis more deftly left-handed,
Cool.
because I don't even get so much into right brain left
Mm-hmm.
brain, Lauren. It just strikes me as truly holistic
Yeah.
to have that level of connection. I don't need there is a level of proficiency that comes with just having one side, but imagine to say, like, it just dawns on me, and it crystallized for me listening to Garen as well, and the way that you've embraced that challenge, that help me with this metaphor. Imagine if I said, to say I'm a right-handed person is to say, like, like I'm only a serious person. I only have this one mode. I only have this one speed. I'm only a fast person. Like, really? You don't have the ability to chew slowly, or make love
Yeah.
slowly, or walk slowly, think slowly. I mean, that's almost what it's like.
Yeah.
Of course, we can execute different speeds and ranges with just having one side, but it's the same. Like, now I'm in the gym and I'm juggling soccer ball with my left foot, and teaching myself to shoot a basketball. I've been throwing left-handed in the gym for probably 2 years now,
Yeah.
and I do so much more that connects both sides of my body, because that's holistic living. And uh, but you spoke to what it does bring to the surface, which is maybe not the type of childlike experience we all would have liked to have, which is, thankfully, Lauren, credit to you, which is what you have now, which is challenge accepted. Not this is too hard and this is unfair and I
Yeah.
look ridiculous and look at how ugly the handwriting is.
I'm gonna make
That's someone else's.
art. We're making art out of this.
That is
You
art.
know?
Of course it is. Of course it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Challenge
it's not all
accepted.
negative either though, because it's kind of like when you are on your journey of evolving and becoming, and you're shedding old layers, what fuels that? It's creation. It's creativity. And to remind our adult crusty selves that that inner child is still there, and then that inner child of exploration. I mean, you're a fellow
Mm.
explorer. You're a curious soul. Me too. And it's also contrast teacher again. It's teaching my body, hey, this side has been neglected for this side. Mix and mingle whatever it may be. But I love that you have been actively thinking through about hitting this ball this way, tossing this ball this way, and I think we're being invited to do more of that. I mean, when I play pickleball, I find it very therapeutic to use my other arm because I can naturally feel my whole body turning into a spiral. But I don't want to just go one way, Tom. Like, naturally, I want to be able to go both spirals. And if I've just been using my right body because I'm a surfer, like, then sometimes in using one side or even thinking one way, we can become deficient in our wholeness of who we can become. And I even noticed your feet in your workshop. Your feet, Tom, are like this. They're not like this. They're not splayed out. And I was going to ask you about that, actually. Your feet are literally like rails, like trains on a track. And my Feldenkrais teacher, who's 91, by the way, she, just in passing before Confluence, she was like, hey, like, I noticed that your feet are kind of like, she used what did she say? She's also a physical therapist. What is it called when your feet are like this? Nation.
I was gonna say, yeah, pronated.
She was like, Lauren, you walk a little pronated. And I was like, you're just telling me this after 2 years? Like, as I'm leaving, like, I feel like we need to address this. So then I noticed your feet at your workshop. You had no pronation, inner or outer. Like, I mean, you were just, I can tell you have a devotion of practice to correct? I mean, what kind of language would you use? Like, are you aware of your train parallel feet? Like,
I am now. Balance is the feeling.
yeah.
Is the and there's static balance, which is a golf swing and a baseball swing, and I mean really what you can do just from one standing position. Uh, I've talked a lot with Brooke McPoyle about that because of her love for golf and now her devotion to training the feet. And I've it's one of those things, Lauren, when you see it clearly, you can't unsee it. And my relationship to my feet and the structure of the feet has taken on such a grander dimension because
Hmm.
they are those two things that touch the ground every day of our lives. I remember on the energetic level listening to Topher Gardner talk about, he said, I have family members whose bare feet have literally not touched the soil, the grass, the earth in decades. And
Wild.
I don't really need a scientific pitch of whatever the story is of electrons and charge and all that to tell anyone that we're missing out on free energy with that.
Hmm.
And so, I have a practice of that, even in the wintertime of finding a way to get my feet on the earth. And the more I've committed to opening up my fascia, starting with the feet and the lower leg, I appreciate you noticing that because I was sitting next to a couple from Maine on the flight home, and as we're leaving, my guy Jonathan he says don't take this the wrong way. He says, but I was admiring your legs, and his wife is
And
with
you're
him.
like, thank you.
So she knows his game. Yeah, she knows his game. But he says, I've been a massage therapist for 20
Yeah.
years. And he says, you have some of the best structured legs that I've seen. He said, whatever you're doing, it's working. And I said, I appreciate that. I said, I don't stretch. I feel the bounciest and the most resilient I've ever felt. And I would credit that too. I mean, you and I talked a little bit about this on some walks. The fascia flow work that I've done thanks to Brooke. I've totally changed my training where I really don't do anything slowly, unless it's to challenge my balance in a deliberate way. There's a lot more flow. There's a lot more of a commitment to being as reactive and fluid as possible, and no coffee, which does drastically alter the pH balance of the fascia. And but yeah, no, I don't force because there's a lot of or there's a good bit of content and philosophies out on social media right now that are about forcing the body into positions.
Yeah.
Like I mean, there are some people who just have pronated feet, some people who are pigeon-toed or anything like that. And some of the best athletes in the world that don't have a lot of maladaptive tendencies, like they don't have an injury history despite the way they're structured. So, I mean, some of that is I'm
Hmm.
learning, how you developed in the womb and, how your, years of
Yeah.
ages 0 through 7 first developed. I mean, your infant development does have a lot to do with then how your musculoskeletal system shapes out. And so don't sweat too much of just what you're working with now. But the feet are a great place to start, and the lower leg, which does open up the chain, which is then how your joints sit in your hips and how they swivel and spiral in there. That frees up your knees. I mean, it's to say the chain doesn't just go one way. I mean, I think it makes sense, the work that I've done from the ground up, but it does impact both ways. This is where I start to challenge the story that we have around gravity is, why would the quality of the fascia and the structure and my mobility with my feet, why would that have such an impact up the chain? Well, that only works in a tensegrity model. That only works in something that is, co-supportive throughout the whole system, that is truly holistic. We don't really have a system at large that supports that sort of holistic understanding. That's your feet could be impacting you all the way up through your cervical spine, all the way up through your neck, the way you're standing. And so yeah, I mean, I hadn't really thought about that. I've seen some pictures where I just say, hey, I like how I'm standing, and that has a lot to do with how I'm training my feet, my lower leg, and truly, it's the best I've ever felt, which inspires me to keep going. And I always implore people to lean into Brooke's work because she just succinctly described it in our morning workshop. She said the foot has 26 bones alone. Your whole leg has four, and the femur alone is
Yeah.
massive. So there, and since fascia is so akin to, it's just, it just seems like bone is harder fascia because of how web-like it is and how crystalline it
Mm-hmm.
is. Then it deserves a lot more attention. The way that the fascia wraps our bones and tendons and
Mm-hmm.
ligaments, since there's no separation with all those elements, even though
Mm-hmm.
you might be able to use a scalpel and dissect them, they still have interplay. They're still holistically united. So anything that we do to increase the viscosity, or excuse me, reduce the viscosity to create more fluid energy for our fascia, especially in the feet,
Yeah.
manifold benefits all the way up the chain. And I have to say, Lauren, and tell me how your body felt for all the walking that we do when we're there
Mm-hmm.
in our earth runners, in our bare feet, on that different terrain over rocks and hardened soil and mud, and then all the spiraling and the bounciness of dancing at night till 1:30 in the morning, and then you wake up at 6:30 the next day. My body felt amazing,
Mm-hmm.
amazing
Mm-hmm.
being there and
Yeah.
after.
Yeah, and it's to your point earlier too about you're not aware of your deficits when you're there. You're not aware of the injury story. You're not aware of what may have been plaguing you upon arrival because you were present and you feel good and you know that even if that thought comes in of like, oh no, like can I dance until 1:30 in the morning without hurting my knee or whatever? It's like
Yeah.
I can adapt, and also I know my body is kind of in this super condensed field of healing. Like I almost would suggest that if there's anybody that needs healing, like if you don't want to participate in Confluence, just come and be. And it's like all of the fields collectively could just heal people. I mean,
Yeah.
because we're operating at such a high level. And I know that sounds like kind of maybe crazy to other people that haven't been there. Um, but even the synchronicities are that much more intensified. The magic is that much more intensified. I was walking early in the morning to try to figure out my shuttle on the way home. I had booked an Uber a week prior, and I think it got confirmed. I needed to check. I didn't really have internet, and I'm walking to the barn where the restaurant is, and I was like, you know what? I just need to send a message to the Telegram thread and just see if the gates are open so that my Uber driver can come in. Like I had some unanswered questions that I was unsure about because the rumor had it Uber drivers can't come in somehow. They get lost on the
Yeah.
windy Texas roads. So I put a message out on the Telegram thread and I was like, hey, does anybody know if the gates can be opened at 5 in the morning? My Uber's coming to pick me up. I tagged Mike on it because I'm like, surely Mike would know. And I was like, you know what? Like, I don't want to bother Mike. Like, with this question, I'll figure it out. So I deleted his name and then I still posted it on the Telegram thread. This is what I'm saying, that the magic and the synchronicities are so intensified when you're in this field. I hit send on that. I walk into the restaurant and there is Mike standing right there. And I was like, okay, like, Mike, I have a question for you. And he very much was like, yeah, the gates are fine. He helped me out with my question. And then I looked at my phone to confirm my Uber driver. I'm on the way to Alex Talk. Guess what my Uber driver's name was?
Well, I know.
Yeah, you do know.
Uh,
Well, it was
our
Jesus.
friend, our friend Jesus.
Maybe Jesus, but I saw Jesus, right? and and that was Alex talk about, he just very briefly mentioned kind of his interaction with the energy of Jesus and a friend and his struggles um and the magic that's created there is unmatched. And if you need something, put it out there as a prayer or an intention, as a thought. It will find you. And I had so many moments, Tom, of, oh, I really want to connect with this beautiful soul, or I really want to see that friend because I want to mention that thing. and boom, they are there right in front of me. And the time that it took was interesting because it's almost like time speeds up or the timelines start to kind of collapse because you have to warm up to this energy. And a few of us were feeling like we got hit with this like high coherent field, but we weren't ready for it because we were leaving our realms, our worlds, and we had to kind of integrate our energy with everybody else's high level energy. And it took us a day or two to kind of warm up, per se, to this coherent field. And so if you put something out one day, like, okay, let's just say it took 10 hours for that synchronicity to make its synaptic connection. But then by day 5, you just think a thought, it's already in play, it's already in motion. And you can really play with that energy. You can have a lot of fun with that energy. And it's rare to be in a field of 1,000 people who are all sharing in this coherency. It's fun and maybe a little dangerous. I don't know, in a good way.
Well, I usually say safety third after danger and funds.
Yeah.
But really no danger. I mean, I had at least 2 occasions of leaving my phone and my wallet totally exposed out on a table under a tent. Didn't think twice about being gone for 2 hours to go have a meal and a chat and go to the bathroom and go
Yeah.
for a swim and come back and there it is. And as there's kids running around and not assaulting each other, well, assaulting each other as kids do in a wholesome way. But to your point, I mean, it makes me think of, for us code heads, shout out to
Code
Brian, my
heads.
conversation with Brian that I recorded there on Disintegration Day on Monday.
Yeah.
That's going to post. This one's going to go out this week. Well, since it's all still so fresh post Confluence, and then our conversation the week after. And yeah, we talked about that. Just that I feel like we were in that almost dreamscape, and yet it was so tangible, so vital, so real, of the most beautiful world our hearts know is possible. And that creates the conditions, obviously. I mean, it was
Yes.
so it was so overt, it was
Yes.
so obvious that the principles of ask and ye shall receive, as someone
Yes.
who has a part of him that has been reticent to ask, I think it's part of it's my
Mm.
Taurus stubbornness. Other parts are just that learned stoicism and that
Mm-hmm.
learned numbness of my needs and things like that. Things
Yeah.
I'm moving beyond and learning how to heal. Yeah, there's a stubbornness that says I'm not gonna ask for that, whether it's help or provision or anything like that, or because that is surrender, that is humility. I heard a great definition of humility that is just being truly what you are and not trying to be anything more or less. It doesn't mean it's not to prostrate yourself, it's not to subject yourself to any sort of lower status or eschew your talents and skills and greatness. No, it's being completely who you are. And so shout out to Tom Barnett. That's something I learned from him. Uh, but that was definitely one of the most gratifying experiences, is to have that level of connection where, I mean, it almost makes me
Mm-hmm.
feel like there are ways to go beyond our reliance on physical or digital technology. And I have a friend who asked me several weeks ago to be in that practice of, hey, we're going to be online at the same time, and no phones, no computers. Let's just see if you and I can connect our fields. Still we
Yeah.
set that intention, and
Yeah.
I'm a rookie at that, and I still had a little bit of
Mm.
a connection with him, which just inspires me to have that level of interdependence that
Yeah.
we just lived in there, and not feel like, I mean, shout out to Topher Gardner, that I loved how he set the tone for us among many elements to his talk, but the one that really rang true the loudest for me was none of us are an island. And I had tried, Lauren, to live for part of that
Mm-hmm.
was definitely my ego and the lack of humility that comes from okay, maybe I think I'm being my whole self completely, and therefore that makes me better than you normies because I know way more. I know
Mm-hmm.
way more about the deceptions in this world, and I'm closer to the truth than you. And that makes me think that, well, maybe I'll just be an island, because then I can, just enjoy the mental masturbation of thinking that
Yeah.
I'm a special boy and I have all these answers. And he said, "What? There'll be no charge in our lives. There'll be no electricity to
Yeah.
fuel us in our lives if we think that we're going to live apart." And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's been an interesting edge that I've touched,
Mm-hmm.
being more connected to these communities that are seeking and finding. And as much as we talk about, maybe not dropping out, but opting out and building
Mm-hmm.
elsewhere, the building is going to require others and those of us with shared values and shared
Yeah.
visions. It doesn't have to be perfectly aligned. In fact, I depend on variety. I depend on that sort of eclectic. I mean, but it's not utopia where it's a communist utopia where all the expectations and roles and responsibilities are the same. There's nothing in life that supports sameness.
Yeah.
There's nothing in life that supports that level of unilateral rigidity.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, Confluence is a beautiful depiction of that. And
Mm-hmm.
but before I forget, Lauren, what, just because I wrote this down right from the jump, there was something you said that made me write down this question as it is. What is a confluence? What is it that you felt was coming together? I mean, how would you describe that? Not what is this event as a festival, as an event unto itself. If we take that word confluence,
Mm-hmm.
what do you feel comes together this time of the year at Sovereignty Ranch?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's an unearthing of who we each are in our own authenticity and our own transparency of self. And then that, when we are aligned authentically, only then can we meet another like minded soul who is in their alignment of authenticity. And I think because we are in this carnival of people that are colliding away from their own islands, because we're all kind of champion type of people. We could take care of ourselves by ourselves because we know all the hacks and the resources, and we know how the body works, and we know how consciousness works. Like, we could been there, done that too. And I'm coming out of that. And so when we are colliding with other people that are like, wait a second, like, we actually can't do this by ourselves. We actually do need each other because we all have different talents and gifts. And as Mike Winter
And
said,
weaknesses and blind spots, yeah.
and blind spots, yeah, yeah. And as Mike Winter said, he said, we're all nodes on the network, on the blockchain. Like, we all have our gifts. And there was a moment for me at Confluence where I wanted to go to Sam Wu's workshop on sovereignty and that whole thing. And I'm not there yet to be able to wrap my head around what does that look like for my whole life. There's aspects of that pie that I'm really interested in. But I just wanted to be there and be with people who are thinking that way all the time. Like, what can I glean from people around a subject that I'm not versed in? And, I'm thinking about what Mike just said. Like, well, I'm a node on my network, and I know I have my expertise and my specialties in the world of healthy homes, natural building, air, light, water, everything to do with a home. That's my node. And somebody else might not know anything about that. And that's kind of how it should be, right? Like, how are we supposed to be experts in all of these flippin' fields of that we're all interested in? There's so many subjects. There's so many books to read. There's so many podcasts to consume. And really, truly, we should just follow that inner awareness that's drawing us to a subject. It's easy to be like, oh, well, in this, freedom, health, and wellness space, we should know everything about all of these subjects. I'm sorry, what? I can't do that. Like, and that amount of pressure only visits a Virgo that's interested in putting more on their plate. But really, like, what I like about Confluence is people that are okay with who they love who they are, and they're like, yeah, this is what I'm not also. I am this and I'm also not that. And that is true authenticity as well. Um, and even in Confluence, like what I appreciated about this year is people in their humanness meeting other humans despite conflict, despite whatever may have bubbled up to the surface, having real conversations with people about it and not being like, no, like we came down from Okoblaya and now we are getting faced with a 3D reality. It's like, well, even in Okoblaya, thanks to the imaginary, beautiful story that Brian Costello wrote, even in Okoblaya, there's moments of conflict or there's moments of confrontation or there's moments of growth, growing beyond the
Indecision.
edge. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's actually how we grow. Like that's actually how we move up and beyond our current state of stuckness. And that's freaking sweet. I don't even know if I answered your question, but confluence is not just a word for me. It's not just a catchy phrase. It's an entire experience of learning how to be human and learning how to be real, and then interacting with other real humans who may challenge you or who may inspire you. Most of these people are going to inspire you if someone goes to Confluence. You're going to be like, there are other humans operating at this level, intellectually, spiritually, emotionally. What? I'm inspired.
And that's on one and brilliantly summarized by you because that's the feeling I have in my heart for sure. And that's why it's been a seminal experience for me is to flow through that field of authentic expression and know that all parts of anyone are welcome. And I'd love to land the plane reflecting on the the work of my friend and teacher Edmund Knighton beyond this integration day and providing us with a healthy dose of the medicine of laughter,
I mean,
which was
before.
a theme throughout. I mean,
Yeah, I was going to say, I
what?
mean, do, like, the last day of Confluence was integration day. So, like, on paper, that
For
meant,
some,
like,
for
hey,
some, it was integration.
yeah, for some people it was integration day. Like, hey, let's integrate all of the learnings on this last day and let's get reflective and let's go deep. And I think at that point, you, myself, our friend Sandy, I'm sure other people that weren't in our little fireplace circle, we couldn't integrate one more second. Like I at that point, I couldn't even have one more deep conversation with anybody else. Like I was done and I just needed to laugh and I needed to laugh and I needed to laugh again. So it was funny because I remember being around, I wasn't eating breakfast, but I was around somebody and I couldn't process any more of the deep heartfelt stuff. Like it was so important, but I wasn't able to be present anymore because I needed that margin to just be goofy. So when I saw you and Sandy and Edmund sitting down, I was like, boom, that's my exit out of this. Like this is where we just go and be. And that was definitely my highlight of laughing with y'all for like, was it 2 hours? Did we laugh for like 2 hours
Oh,
straight?
at least
Okay.
that was uninterrupted, and then certainly pockets of it throughout the day, and I that's why I tell everyone this year, this festival, this experience was the most fun I've ever had in my life because it was because the I mean it was capitalized by that morning and it's because it's the ingredient, it's the spice, it's the medicine you didn't know that you needed, and to be, what's funny is just occurring to me now because my 100-day gong that I've been doing. Let's see, today is day 51, uh, so just over halfway there, and it's been breath
Amazing.
work, and I couldn't breathe. I had no air available for most of those encounters with Edmund and
Yeah.
you and Sandy and Sam and our
Yeah, it's
friends,
Sam too.
and and deeply, deeply nourishing because and it's not like the rest of the week was serious. I mean, there are so many
Yeah.
elements of levity throughout that, and and still, for that too. I've definitely had my times of taking myself too seriously. That was
Sure.
very much a part of my story of getting into Stoic philosophy and getting more serious about my health and all of that.
Yeah.
And such is life, that we are called to answer all of life with the right balance, with the right, just
Yeah.
in the same way that you can drink too much water, you can have too much sleep, or you can have too little water or too little sleep. There's a balance, and
Mm-hmm.
that scale slides. And so I'm deeply grateful to Edmund for that reminder,
Mm-hmm.
as well as what I keep coming back to from his talk on, I believe it was Friday evening. So early days, early hours of what became the most fun I've ever had in my life, reminding us that all parts of us are welcome. And when we limit ourselves to look only through the lens of I, or myself in totality,
Hmm.
as this aspect, is when we lose the plot. And so even in conversations I've
Mm-hmm.
had lately with one of my good friends, who he's someone who knows and has studied with Edmund as well, was talking about, he said, I'm just like this, and he expanded on what specifically that was. And
Mm-hmm.
I offered that reminder that there's a part of you that's like this, and there's a part of you that is its
Yeah.
antithesis, that just hasn't been visited as often.
Yeah.
And that's been so liberating, because the theme of or one of the themes that I took from listening to Edmund was, in the same way that he challenged you, Lauren, to slow down 1%, or every day, how can you feel 1% more free in your body? How can yourself, your soul, feel 1% more free? And to identify with one domineering part of yourself is not a road to freedom. It's that's about as rigid and as myopic and as short-sighted as it gets.
Yeah.
And to realize that we have a miraculous web of parts of ourselves, some of yet are unnamed or unexplored, then that's, I mean, a delightful entreaty to greater freedom and exploration, for sure. And I meant it when I said that through the practice he took us through of being a neutral listener,
Mm-hmm.
of being able to empty ourselves as best we could, so that we could receive not just the words, but the emotions, the feelings, the energy, and as well as what is being unsaid by someone speaking to you. I mean, it's still a practice, to be sure, as you
Mm-hmm.
know. I mean, because otherwise we can make people uncomfortable with almost perfect presence, is
Yeah.
not making it about me. And you and I, like we talked about, we're engaged and enthusiastic listeners. That's one of our love languages, to let people know that we are fully present with them.
Mm-hmm.
But to get to that place of neutral listening, where I am as fully receiving as possible of that which you're sharing, that was a key to freedom for me, because the
Hmm.
gentleman that I had that encounter with was using all the buzzwords and all the familiar phrases that I know from my explorations into health. And he even said, I saw a part of you, not physically, just energetically, that wanted to lean in and say and go, mm-hmm, and oh yeah, oh, I know all about that, and then get right to the depth, which is the place where you and I love to live. And still, it was so fresh and so new, and therefore so freeing,
Mm-hmm.
to feel like I was hearing those words for the first time, and have a new level of curiosity unlocked. And it takes me back to one of the tenets of Steiner teaching when it comes to words. And I only know one language, so I do my best with it. I do my best to articulate and make myself first clear to myself, so then I can make myself clear to others. Even with that, whatever way that I encode the word, like we talk about energy, and of course energy has manifold meanings. Or if I something like love in the English language, to say I love tennis, I love I love oranges, I love Jordan, I love our friendship, I love it's the limit is can be so confining. Partly because we don't know how it's going to be decoded by someone else. I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
exactly how the way that I'm using this phrase today in this time is going to be decoded by you.
Yeah.
And partly that's because people are not listening from that place of neutrality and full receivership. And still, like I said, we do our best, but I bring that up to say that there are most of our experience goes beyond words. and feeling like we constantly need to name and articulate is quite a bit of a limit as well. It's still a great goal because we live in this world of connection, and still I'm humbled by that reminder that it's much more important for us to have the quiet spaces to just feel and not always name and let things arise effortlessly. The idea of being as effortless as possible to do things ASAP, as slow as possible, is one of our most available portals to freedom.
Yeah.
So those are my most alive reflections from our time with Edmund. How would you ground us and bring us home, Lauren, whether it's what you learned listening and laughing and loving with Edmund or anywhere else over those grounds last week?
Edmund made a comment during his talk about pacing. And I don't know if you remember him saying something about how the real message is in the quiet time, the silence. And that's the same message from my Feldenkrais practice, is the real work is done in the pause. It's not done in the modality. It's not done in the movement. It's done in the pause. And that is something that I've been working on, at least for a couple years now, actively, not passively, is noticing what's going on during that pause. And so when Edmund said that about even in his delivery of his talk, I wanted to talk to him about that. I wanted to ask him about that. As a public communicator and as a speaker and as someone that has quite a bit of public speaking experience, I'm fascinated by communication. I'm fascinated by other people's public speaking and how they do it, what makes them flow, and something that I have been working on for ever since I've been speaking, I don't know, 15 years. It's this pacing thing. It's this pause thing. And I asked Edmund, I said, when I get really excited about something, I want to talk really, really fast and get all the data out. And so you're fully prepared. You know what I'm talking about. And that's when he was like, yeah, bro, say that, but
He might have.
he
Yeah,
was. That's when he said, slow down 1% every day. Do that today, at least until July. I don't actually remember what he said will happen to me in July if I follow this protocol. So something cool will happen to me in July if I slow down 1%. I'll let you know what that is. I really don't know. I forget. I kind of blacked out, honestly. Like, because the 1% was so, in the same way, Tom, like that little tidbit was meaningful to you. The 1% was so meaningful to me. It just like stuck with me. And I think that the message is in the pause. The message is in the pacing. And what was the percentage that he said that our brains can only comprehend so much before we is it 10?
10%. So we were all tapped out
by Friday.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. And I think you're a public communicator, you're a public speaker as well, and it's like, okay, game on to that too. Challenge accepted. Like, how can we move forward in the public sphere, the public sector, and honestly work less? Because the message will be more profound if we dial back our output and allow the margin, the pause, to just be there. That's an art. But I do know, as I've become more comfortable with who I am, as I've worked and allowed myself to be more authentic, and I'm less worried about whatever and whomever, the pause is way more welcoming. And the pause is easier to access because I feel safe within. I feel safe with who I am. I love myself. I love my contributions. And I'm not threatened by who even I am. And so I think Edmund was able to display an internal safety within where he knows who he is. And he's able to teach a message coming from that genuine, rooted, permanent place. So I think I resonated with that a lot. And I think, again, that's why this Confluence was so practical. It's like we actually have to do this work now. Like we were in the clouds last year, but now we're writing with our non dominant hand. We're walking around our house blindfolded in the morning. And now we're pausing, like between everything we're saying. Like, when do we get to the fun stuff? Like, can I open my eyes? Can I talk all I want? You
Can I spit on people without any reprisal?
Yeah, like,
Lovingly,
can
of
we
course.
just
The
really be
waters of
ourselves?
life.
But the word restraint, we're all Qigong lovers, right? We're all Tai Chi lovers. Like, we're all energy handlers. But we also know that what comes with that world is restraint. Like, we don't just attack, 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 attack. Like, there's a step back approach that is necessary in those modalities. And restraint is also connected to listening. As much as we want to talk, when we want to be good listeners, we have to restrain ourselves and not be thinking about the next thing that somebody is saying, even restraining that story, and just be present in the moment. So so many intense themes that one person might think are so simple, but it may take a lifetime to achieve. I don't know. But I'm ready for it. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about these very simple, practical tips and ways of living that will create a ripple effect into next year's Confluence, into our work, into our relationships. I mean, how many people do we wish would just pause so that we could be with their essence?
Everyone, will you inspire me with your pursuit of slowness and simplicity and all the fertile fruits that come out of that? And you make it so easy and fun to do this, Lauren. You make it so easy and fun to connect with you and celebrate this life and all of its challenges and triumphs and everything in between, even if we only, at least for now, get to do it once a year, because it absolutely fills my cup and it lets me know that I'm exactly where I should be, and I will keep coming back to Confluence again
Yes.
and again and again.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing this time with me, and any chance we get to do it again, we'll do another wrap soon. We'll talk more about our lives and what we're building, because as Brian and I talked about, especially compared to last year, one of the phrases that keeps coming up for me is, what shall we do now? As an invitation, not what are we going to do in that panicky mode. It's, what shall we do? What are the boundless portals of opportunity and imagination to then go create? And it didn't occur to me until being at Topher's opening talk for Confluence this year that when I didn't really have an intention coming in. What I received, because again, that would be the proclamation, that would be the talking, not the listening and receiving. And what I received as an intention, and I very much experienced this, was strength. And we've been alluding to it with different phrases and words in this conversation, but I'm talking about the strength that comes from other people's regulation, coherence, authenticity.
Yes.
That inspires strength. The dissonance, the chaos, otherwise, I mean, that's divide and conquer personified. But we're talking now about unify and heal, which is one of our mantras for Confluence as well. So I received that very much so. And I will hold in my imagination that one of the themes for next year's Confluence and every day in between and every day thereafter will be oriented around creation and solution. I talked with people, I talked with Alec about that. We talked about that, is what are the ways that we can bond the brilliance of this community to take all that we've listened to and received, and then it turns into action and creation to unify and heal. So that's my vision for this time and Confluence 2027. I'll see you there.
Is that your prediction? Because wouldn't that be kind of
It is.
fun to do predictions for next year's theme?
Yeah, give me yours, and that's how we'll bring us. That's the finale. What's your prediction for when we have this conversation next year? We'll be talking about our experience with what?
Remind me in a couple sentences what your prediction is or your vision.
Solutions creation is what having the collaborative environment where we leave there saying I have the benefit of people's recent tried and true experiences of I've been doing this in sovereignty, I've been doing this with food, I've been doing that with community building, I've been doing this for my terrain, etc., for my family, for homeschooling, whatever. And we get to leave with a lot more actionable practices
Yeah.
immediately upon going home. So solutions and creation, those are my themes that we'll be talking about this time next year. What say you?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I even left Confluence thinking people are going to be yearning for practicality in the
Yeah.
future.
And we touched it. We
We
touched it this
did.
year for sure.
We did. And so I kind of sense that whatever hits the fan this year, Confluence will be a direct result of supporting people in that possible conflict or possible fear or possible concern. And so, really, whatever is delivered in the form of speakers or workshops is going to be a practical resolution. And I also sense like we don't have to be afraid, despite the whole world being afraid of said a couple of things that could happen between now and next year. So I kind of see it being a place of comfort too. Like, y'all, we've done this before, and we'll do this again together, and we'll do the next one together, and we're going to support each other and be there for each other and resource each other. Um,
Mm.
and it having a multiplying effect in the same way that the Way Forward platform connects our regions and our people. I think about the people in my region, Key, Edwards, and Corey. Like, we have every intention of continuing to create that bond and that depth together, so that we can create something like that here. And I know you've got people near you in Boston. And so I think real practically, like, okay, how can we recreate what we've experienced, but even closer to home so that we don't feel so alone, so that we don't feel so lonely, and that we can, as you said, increase that electricity at a, as we're talking about slowing down, but at a faster pace. Like filling that void, I think visiting it more regularly so that we don't show up every April so depleted. We'll see. I'm curious. It'll be fun to see what unfolds.
And I can see it now. And that's why we pause to let our imagination reverberate throughout the time that is even beyond the present moment and is happening all the time. So thank you for celebrating this confluence, my friend. It was really, as always, one of the most memorable highlights getting to share
Yeah.
that time with you and Jordan and our
Yes.
friends. And I'll see you next year.
Yes. Thank you, Tom. You're an amazing space holder, and I so appreciate you and Jordan. And I'm ready to do this for the 10th time. Like, we're going to have a conversation in 10 years, debriefing the same thing. We better be laughing. We better be disintegrating by the time we get there. So,
We'll start with disintegration from the jump. From the jump.
yes,
Thank you, Lauren.
that sounds like a plan. Thank you, Tom.